Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of MTG Sin Senpai. For this evening, I have just a single draft deck to go over with everyone. Unfortunately, this particular draft pod was only a four-man pod, so it wasn't the biggest pod, but it was still a lot of fun. Overall, I did enjoy the things that I did draft, and so going to go over them. This is the actual draft deck. These were the extras or my sideboard. So I go over the sideboard initially. This one's just a decent counter spell, and also the fact that you can counter activated or triggered abilities as well. It's not the worst thing to do. The fact that it's modal, and for brothers, it is pretty crucial for artifacts. Enchantments not as much, but there are certain ones that I probably would have wanted to stop, and that's why I grabbed that. The Well of Lost Dreams I actually decided to grab because it was possible card draw engine, but I didn't get that much life gaining mechanics, at least in this particular draft pool, so I decided not to run it. This is just a 9 mana 9/9 that could be either a 6 mana 6/6, so it's a decent card, and I was heavily in blue, so I decided to run that. This particular one I'm a big fan of just because it's a +2/+0, and then the clause of getting the creature back. I do like me recursion a lot, so that's why I grabbed this one. I went with this particular card because it's a decent 2 mana 2/2. Worst case scenario is just a 2 mana bear. Base case scenario, you can potentially use the 3 mana tap and draw ability, and it is technically a sack outlet for both creatures and artifacts, so something to keep in mind. That's why I grabbed that. This one was kind of like, this is the best of the worst of picks. Every time I've grabbed this, I've never had to run it because I've had other removal, but if you absolutely have no removal and you need something, I mean, I guess it's there. Curate, it's a decent draw spell at instant speed. The Surveil too is kind of actually crucial depending on what kind of graveyard synergies you might be going, and I decided not to run it myself because I had other options. Millstone, this one was the another best case of the worst, the best of the worst cards in the remainder of the pool. Decided to grab this just in case I decided the games would be drawn out and would need to go the mill plan. The 4 mana 2/3, I'm not a big fan of the self mill mechanic. I do know it works for a lot. I am not one of those a lot. I just not the biggest fan of it personally, but it's a decent 4 mana 2/3 at least. And then if worst case scenario, it's a 4 mana 3/4. So there is that. I always seem to get stuck with this particular common, but at least it's a common. I don't really have too much of the unearth mechanic this time around, but I'm sure this would have worked if there is enough unearth mechanic in the set where it can work. Chromatic Star, this was a nice fixer if I decided to splash for another color. This particular time I went solid black-blue just because there's only 4 people in the pod. I think I've said before, this is not the worst 5 mana 4/4 that when it dies you get 2 life and you have that option to unearth it to get that 2 more life. This one was the last pick. I don't think I would ever run it in a deck myself personally. Not the biggest fan of it, but it's there. Once again, the Dredging Clause. This one is something I got stuck with. The supply drop I decided to grab early on because it is a pretty decent battle trick. It costs a little bit of extra mana, but the fact that it also allows you to draw a card whenever you're done with it, it's actually not the worst. This one was just a temporary removal that I decided to grab, but I didn't really need it, so I didn't run it. This one I got stuck with, so I'm not even going to go into that. Basic land, never a bad choice. This one was more of a 4 mana 2/3 that I decided to grab just because there's a bunch of them going around, so I decided to grab it. But it is a pretty decent 4 mana 2/3 Death Touch Reach creature, so it's actually not the worst. Stuck with this stupid wall again. And then the Urza's Power Stone Prodigy. This is actually a pretty decent looter if you absolutely need it. And the fact that you can get Power Stones whenever you discard artifacts as well, it's actually not the worst. Then this is the actual draft deck. Decent 1 mana 1/1 for 1, and the fact that you have Unearth for 1 as well, and you can use it to just straight up draw a card, it's actually pretty decent 1 mana 1/1. This one was one of those, I love this card myself personally just because I love the value. Having a single card that I can constantly reuse for either discard synergies or sacrifice synergies or things of that nature. I do enjoy them. Now, it does have a lot of mana requirement, but whenever things get kind of dredged up and you need some answers, this potentially can help you get there. It's a pretty decent 2-mana 2/1 that whenever you do draw your second card per turn, it gets bigger. And there's a lot of things I ran in the deck to draw an additional card. And the fact that when it dies, it makes a 1/1 flyer. Not bad. Once again, the drawing 2 card synergies. It's a decent 2-mana 2/3 that allows you to loot, and it gets bigger with Menace whenever you do your second card, so it's actually pretty decent. This one I got super lucky in, I believe, my pack 2. I was already in blue, and I don't know the number of times I've gone against this card and didn't have a removal, that it just killed me. It's pretty ridiculous. Probably one of the best cards in the set, so very strong play there. Super strong removal, plenty of power stones and other things that I had to sack, and the cheaper 1/1s and the smaller creatures that I had was a big fun, and the fact that I have 2 of them, decent reason to run both, so very strong removal for the set. This particular card, initially, I will admit I looked over, but the fact that it starts off as a 1/1 flyer from its effect, it's already pretty strong, and the fact that it just gets bigger. I've had multiple instances where this card was the threat that my opponents had to deal with, but because it was never a creature during their turn, their sorcery speed removal just was not an option for them, so it was a lot of fun. Scatter Ray, I'm not the biggest blue player, but this is just a solid 2-mana counterspell for limited, especially the fact that it lets you counter artifacts or creatures. Yeah, it's limited to those 2 things, but in this particular limited format, that's pretty much everything it is. It's artifacts or creatures. This is a pretty decent bounce spell. Either it's a 2-mana bounce spell, or if you have that artifact creature, it's a 1-mana bounce spell. So that's a pretty decent spell to run. I personally like these 2/3s because it's a formidable threat late game, depending on how the situation goes. If the board stays stalled and you have the 3 creatures in the graveyard, you just have a bigger creature that's constantly getting bigger every turn, and having 2 of them is actually pretty fun. I never got really big against any of my opponents this particular time around, but I have seen instances where I had a good, 3 or 4 turns where it was able to get bigger, and I had a 5/6 on the board. So yeah, I've had some good experiences with these guys. This one was a decent blue card. Yeah, it costs a lot of mana to get the effect to draw 2 cards, but in the late game, whenever you do have nothing else to do, having that mana dump to get more resources, I think it was beneficial. It actually helped me to get through one of my opponents because the board game, like, I had no other options, but I did have the 7 mana, so I was able to draw the 2 cards. Decent 3-mana 1/3 with reach. That's just a mana dork essentially. I like this card a lot. This one, I'm not the biggest fan of Hand Disruption, but Hand Disruption wise, it's actually not the worst, and it's technically mana ramp for you for your artifact effects and your abilities. So yeah, it's a pretty decent 3-mana discard. And allows you to look at your opponent's hand. So knowledge is a very important thing, especially whenever you're playing against certain opponents that have a lot of battle tricks. This way you'll know what battle tricks they have and what options they may be able to pull off. And then it's always fun playing this, and then they have nothing but lands in their hand. It's like, okay, now you know what's going on. Jalem's Tome, Jalem? Yeah, I believe that's pronounced Jalem. It's a decent looter card. Pretty awesome. Take Flight is an enchantment that I really enjoy. Evasion in this set is actually pretty strong. I've had a lot of instances where just that one flying creature was able to get in just enough damage to just blow me out. This is one of those things that can do that. Involuntary Cooldown, I think, is a pretty decent stall card, essentially. Locking your opponent's creatures down for 3 turns, essentially, are pretty powerful, I feel. So that's why I decided to run that. This one, the 5-mana 2/4, I actually cited this in from my last game. Technically, I had the Urza's Power Stone Prodigy instead of this initially, but I needed the flying to just battle out my opponents, and then the secondary effect of putting a card on the bottom of the library, be it yours or an opponent's, it's actually pretty beneficial. I like this particular rock. The fact that it's a 5-mana, it's a little intensive, but that you can flash it in and it gets you a Power Stone, it's pretty strong, I feel. No One Left Behind is a pretty decent reanimation spell. There are some pretty powerful cards, like Surge Engine is a perfect example. Like, if they do get rid of them early on, I have an option to get them back later. Goring Warplow, it's decent 6-mana 5/4 that if you really need it, it's a 2-mana 1/1 Death Touch, so pretty strong. This was my pack 1 pick one. I will admit I did have a Titania in the pack as well. That particular time, I was not going for value. I was just going for wins. And if I was really going for value, I could have gone for the Titania. But I wanted to win. And I know Wurmcoil Engine is one of those cards that typically you win when you hit it, but one of my opponents once again was too fast for me to beat out, so I got second place because of it. But it is what it is. And then I got my 8 mana 4/5 that you can play for 4 mana that also lets you scry equal to its power of 2/3. So, and that is that particular draft deck. It only got second place out of 4 people, so it's not the worst. Could have been a lot better. I could have had the Titania, but it is what it is. I mean, I'm playing for fun and playing to win, and that would have been the way to go, but it is what it is. I did get a single pack, and then I got a single promo pack, so let's see what we got in these. Just hoping we got some fun things in these as well. Maybe I get lucky, I get a Wurmcoil and a Titania in this pack as well. So we got ourselves a Frost Dryad, uncommon Soul Guide Lantern, pretty decent. Oh, we got ourselves a Steel Seraph is our rare. That's actually not the worst. I've seen better. Could be a lot better, but it is what it is. Got ourselves a Mass Production, Gurgling Anointer. I do like this card a lot. And a Giant Cindermaw. So that is our uncommons, and we got ourselves some commons to go through as well. Nothing too crazy in the commons department, but we got ourselves a Steel Seraph, so at least there's that. And then we got our promo pack to go through, so here's hoping we get something good here. Alright, first off, we'll start off with this code here. So to whoever gets it, there you go. Best of luck to the person that happens to pull this. Hopefully you get something good. From the past couple of giveaways, no one's actually commented what they got. It is what it is. I mean, I'm not going to hold y'all to it, but let me know. I'd like to know if you get something good. Now, if you get nothing good and it's all bad stuff, don't tell me. And I'm just going to assume if I don't hear from you, you got all bad stuff. But if you happen to get good stuff, that would be great. Soul Partition is our first rare. I feel like this is pretty lackluster. But it's, if you need removal, absolutely, I guess that's an option, but I'm not the biggest fan. We got ourselves a Corrupt. I was a big fan of running Mono Black. I did run Mono Black Control back in the day, and this was one of those key cards that just, in the late game, the later the game goes, the more damage this does, the more life you gain. Pretty insane, so that was always fun. And wow, look at that. We got ourselves a Shivan Devastator as our other one. So getting a Mythic in one of these is actually pretty fun. Now, this particular Dragon Hydra, I guess, it's not the worst. It's not the best, but it's still not the worst. And so it's a lot of fun, especially for an X-Red Dragon that just has Flying Haste. Pretty decent. But yeah, that is everything from today's video. And you know what? I keep saying that I'm going to go over them. I'm going to actually pull one right now and go over it now. Here's one of my pre-release kits from the pre-release weekend. They're honestly in no particular order. I'd gone to so many different one of the events. And so I'm just going to kind of go through everything I have here and just kind of go through them. I haven't even sorted these out. I'm pretty sure all the rares that I had in them are not even sorted out properly. Still even have the tip info. But there is our promo code for Arena for going to the pre-release event. So here you go. Whoever gets that, good luck to you. Hopefully you get some good stuff. And then this was, let's see, it's upside down here. So yeah, there's that. So there is the Wood Elves that I got from attending one of the events. Pretty decent promo card. A big fan of it. I know your options were, it's like Wood Elves, Windfall, and Wall of Roots. I was lucky enough to attend so many events. I got at least a couple of each. So there, you'll be seeing them floating around. Got our tokens, kind of go through those. And then we got ourselves our commons and uncommons. So you'll see how I kind of sort this out. I put my commons and uncommons into a pile initially, and then I'll sort them out as I go. I believe this was my black-green deck that I ran with my buddy during the two-headed giant, maybe? Possibly? Seems like it is. Nope, never mind. No, it's not. Not sure which deck it is. Like I said, I did so many of the pre-release events. They all kind of merged into one, so I couldn't tell you exactly which one was which anymore at this point. Just kind of going over what came in what pack. Ooh, I got ourselves a foil Sword of the Meek. I know there's plenty of combo decks that use this. I don't have any of them that do, but I probably should. We got ourselves an Adaptive Automaton. I remember when this used to be one of the #1 things, but now it's fallen out of grace so far. And then got ourselves a Soul Partition here. Kind of just sorting out the rares and Everything else, disenchants. If you're in white in any limited situation, definitely try and get your hands on those. Static net is a pretty decent white removal as well. Recommission. Let's see, a couple of things here. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of events that I went to. Like I said, I don't recall every single one at this point, but I did play a handful of them, and there were a lot of them. They were a lot of fun. Like, I gotta say, pre-release events have got to be my favorite events to go to. I try and do as many as I can, and if I think I mentioned it before, I was lucky enough that my LGS that my friend goes to, or that I go to for my pre-release events, or the normal judge was actually going to be out of town at the time, and so they asked if I could judge for them, and it was an experience. It was a lot of fun. I'll definitely be doing it again if they ever need me to do it again in the future. Key to the City. As far as I know, everyone that attended the events that I judged, they were happy. I hope that I can continue to do so. If not, it is what it is. I'll continue to attend and continue to participate because I'm still going to play Magic. I'm still going to enjoy myself. And if I'm judging as well at the same time, I do enjoy doing that as well. So either option is fun for me. I'm just going to keep doing it. And then kind of boiling everything down. There wasn't too much that was going on in this particular draft set. Oh, I did get the Thran Spider. And then Mechanized Warfare is a fun card. Regardless if you're going in red or not, just the fact if you have a bunch of artifact creatures, that's still a pretty decent card. And then the other pile here, one of the more fun cards that we got was a Mesmeric Orb. Unfortunately, wasn't really able to play it this particular limited, but super fun regardless. Got ourselves, I'm sure people saw it peek out, but got ourselves a Behemoth and a foil Gix Yawgmoth Praetor. Pretty awesome. Definitely ran this, if I remember correctly. This is just a powerful card. Got ourselves a Deathbloom Ritualist. It's okay. Howling Mine was a lot of fun. Gwena Eyes of Gaia. Mishra's Foundry. The Clay Champion. This card, bonkers. I know this one definitely performed great. The Simian Simulacrum. The fact that it's an ape kills me. And then, of course, there's that monkey card that came out not too long ago. So there's that. Misery Shadow. Then we got our commons and uncommons. So I guess this was the deck, if I remember correctly. So I ran this green-black deck, I'm guessing, if I remember correctly. That's what it looks like. Another card that... yeah, this was during the Two-Headed Giant. So one of the cards that I was running in this particular pool, it was one of my buddies, but he had a Painful Quandary as well. I think it was that 5-mana enchantment that whenever your opponents cast a spell, unless they discard a card or pay 5 life, or they can't cast a spell unless they discard a card or pay 5 life. So, just ridiculous. But yeah, that was one of my draft decks and one of my pre-release kits, pools combination. I think it was that weird combination of the Two-Headed Giant one and the other, but there we are. I do have plenty of other kits to go through, and I know I'm going to be doing a handful of more drafts. And then with Dominaria Remastered coming up, I do actually have one of my fans have already told me that they would like me to open their box for them. So this is great. I'm going to be doing that whenever the product comes in. I know release date is January 13th, if I remember correctly. But yeah, if anyone else is interested in having me open their product on the channel, I'd be more than happy to do so. Feel free and reach out to me. I gotta put together some kind of other format other than just through Facebook. But yeah, thank you again everyone for taking the time to watch, and please take the time to like, comment, subscribe, and please share the video. I'm more than happy to do more, and I'm going to try and be more consistent. It is a little hard to stay on top of everything, working full time and everything as well, but I'm going to keep doing it regardless. So thank you again everyone for taking the time. Please, once again, like, share, comment, subscribe. Appreciate everyone taking the time. You guys have a wonderful one, and never forget, Senpai didn't notice. Good night.